Hello, hello. This is Kim Addis, and you have joined us at the Frame of Mind Coaching Podcast. I am the president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching, and I want to welcome you to today's episode, where we get to talk to a very interesting, let's call him a volunteer, who is willing to share a challenge with us. It is my great pleasure to welcome you, Raj, to the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Kim.
So it's Raj Thakkar.
Raj Thakkar, yes, that's right.
Got it. And you live in New York, and you run a business called Charter School Business Management.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what that is.
So we often have educators come to us who want to launch their own charter schools, but they don't know the first thing about managing the millions of dollars of public funds that they get as a result. So we manage their accounting, their payroll, their budgeting, financial reporting, forecasting, and help them with their audits each year. And they can either outsource that work to us, or we can professionally develop them on how to do it themselves if they bring the function in-house.
Okay, very interesting. Now, you and I met, I don't even know how many years ago. We met in person at an EO event. EO, for those of you who don't know, stands for Entrepreneurs Organization. So you've been part of this organization for how long?
I was a member for about 5 years before joining YPO earlier this year.
Oh, way to go. Congratulations.
Thank
So
you.
when did we meet exactly?
I'd say probably 4 or 5 years ago at that event.
If I remember correctly, it was an event that was specifically designed to help leaders learn mentorship and coaching skills. Is that
That's right.
accurate?
That's
And we
right.
ended up in a group. So I was actually secretly invited to this meeting by a very good friend and past client of mine to come and learn about what was going on in the EO world. So I was supposed to be a kind of quiet observer. And we ended up in a group together where each one of us was supposed to present a challenge. And you ended up talking a little bit about your mother. And I very quickly, easily, naturally stepped into the role of a coach because it's in my DNA. So can you take us back to that experience? What was that about?
Sure. So I think at the event, we were simulating the conversation that typically happens in a forum meeting where forum members get vulnerable about what's particular challenges that they're going through. And I volunteered to be the volunteer. I volunteered that day, and I described how, for most of my life, my mother was always very challenging, partial to my older brother, and I naturally was closer to my father. And I think afterwards you had invited me, like there was some live coaching there, but you had invited me to do a call afterwards, and I think that's where the impact was, where I think you had so masterfully kind of invited me to accept my mother as she was, instead of expecting her to act any differently. And for some reason, I was like, I haven't tried that. Let me let me do that. And ultimately, I became very thankful for that because, like a couple of years later, actually last year, she unexpectedly got stage 4 cancer. And I luckily spent the last 4 months of her life with her at my brother's home in Texas, taking care of her every need. And I think that coaching call with you was so pivotal because had I not received my mother in a completely different way than I had been my whole life, I may not have, reconciled and gotten to a much healthier place with her.
Yeah, a place of peace.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and I just want to kind of pause there for a minute because I think this is really important. A lot of times there's someone in our lives that, we wish showed up in a different way. And when that experience happens, we feel out of sorts. We get to a place where we are out of alignment. And the minute we decide that that person doesn't need to change in order for us to be happy is the moment we reclaim, we re-own our sense of well-being. And so this is relevant for every single person because there's someone in everyone's life who rubs them the wrong way. And they come home and they're super frustrated. And, there's a lot of anger, resentment, confusion, all that kind of stuff. And once we are able to understand where they're coming from, why they show up the way they do, and be at peace with it, all of a sudden we're good again. We can breathe. So, but you come today with a completely different challenge.
Yes, yes.
So tell us about what's going on right now.
Yeah, so I think I've spent a couple of, several years reconciling all of a lot of different matters, and and right now I currently feel like, okay, my mental health is in the healthiest place it's ever been, and the only matter that's facing me right now, and I could be just telling this to myself, is my physical health, where I think for probably since college I've been 20-30 pounds overweight, um, and I think given my father's history with his health, so from age 50 he had his first heart attack, and then over a 19-year period he had six more heart attacks for a total of seven. He had quadruple bypass, he had dozens of stents put in him, he had a cardiac defibrillator, until he passed away in 2013. So at this point I'm 5 years away from when he had his first heart attack. uh, I've been told by my doctor that if I could just lose 20-30 pounds, that could drastically change the outlook of my life, my lifespan. And I think with my mom also passing away at age 69 last year, he died at age 69, and so did she. In my head, the story I'm telling myself is I've got 24 years left. Who knows really how much time I actually have, whether it's longer or shorter than that, but that's what I'm telling myself. Yeah, I think I'll pause there.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of talk about something very interesting. A lot of the kind of health coaches, nutritional coaches out there might ask you a very specific question, and I'm going to ask it, but then I'm going to take you in a different direction. So, why is it important for you to lose weight? Is it simply to extend your life, or what is the driver?
The driver for me is to extend my life because I have such peace when it comes to my life at home with my wife Nadia, married 12 years, and we're in such a wonderful place. It took a lot of work to get here, but so that's working really well. My daughter is Reina is amazing. She's 11 years old. Uh, Things at my company, during COVID, of course, there's a lot of challenges that are coming up, but things are as good as they can be, given the state of the world at the moment. Um, so I feel peace in all other areas of my life, and it feels like if I could get to this one challenge, then I can extend my life, and enjoy more of what I finally currently have.
Okay. So there's a theory out there that says, well, if you really, really wrap your arms around your why, then that's going to be the motivation you need to get to where you want to go. I don't happen to believe that.
Okay.
Okay. So the reason is that I think your why is pretty damn compelling, right? Like it's about your life. It's
Yeah.
like literally, in your case, it could be a matter of life and death, given your history and your genes, who knows, right?
Right.
And because you have so many great things going for you, you're highly motivated to take care of this issue. However, you've been trying a whole bunch of different things, and it doesn't seem like that why is compelling enough.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of bad habits. I definitely have an interesting relationship with food where I've equated uh, food to whether or not I'm loved. I know there's a long history there. I suspect I know where it comes from, but yeah, the compelling why is certainly there, and the behavior changes are that I've been trying to do are inconsistent at best. Um, there's definitely some times where I want to, either consciously or subconsciously misbehave and just treat myself or
Okay.
and I know that taste, at least in my head, I prioritize taste over nutrition, which I know it should be the opposite, you
Okay.
know.
So what I want to say to you is that, again, your why is very compelling, but your why not is more compelling. And it's the case for all of us. Like, the reason that you want anything, the reason I want anything, is because we believe that that will be fulfilling, satisfying, lead us to a happier, better life. That's why you want to get healthier, ultimately. But your why not is at play. And those are all the reasons that are interfering with your ability to, in your words, um, behave with consistency. So I don't think you lack knowledge. I don't think you are uneducated and you're unaware that eating, a ton of fried food isn't probably the best idea, right? Like, you're aware, you're conscious. Hey, this is something that will make me feel better. This is something that will probably not lead me to my goals. Okay,
That's right.
right. So here's the interesting thing. In this conversation that we've had, you've mentioned the word peaceful, peaceful many, many times.
Hmm.
And it sounds like that's really a driver for you. And you also mentioned that in your life with your wife, you are at a peaceful place, but it took a lot of work to get there.
Hmm.
Can you describe that for me, please?
Well, so she and I have, the two of us have always been in a great place. However, I think a lot of family influence, mostly on my side. My wife is Muslim and I'm Hindu, and we're not supposed to get along. And to us, we were just like, listen, if our values align, um, who cares about certain practices or not? Like, you do what you do, I do what I do, and I'm not even so religious myself, and so to us, it wasn't such a big deal. But to family members, it was, and that was definitely part of. My father was very accepting. My mom wasn't until the end, where she realized and reconciled with my wife around that. And so and I've also um, we've done the Getting the Love You Want series. Well, read the books and went to the seminars with Harville Hendricks and Helen LaKelly Hunt, and we've done a lot of the work. We've done, every marriage has um, the ability to get there if you put in the time. So, we put in the time, and
Okay, so it's interesting, right? So you have this relationship where you had opposing forces. And yet, for whatever reason, you consistently behaved in a way that said my marriage comes first.
yes.
Do you see the parallel between that?
Oh, totally. Yeah, my health comes first, and yeah, I
So
was able to, like I lost 17 pounds. I was doing Eat to Live, and what my forum mates urged me to consider is just like, listen, you did this, you'll do it for 2, 3, 4 months, and then you'll hop back off and think everything is fine, and then slowly gain it all back and then some. So they urged me to consider doing some sort of sustainable Eat to Live, that it's not this big grandstand for X amount of time, drop the weight, think it's all fine, and it's got to be a sustainable thing for the rest of my life, not just for a short time frame to get the short term results.
okay, so let's just talk a little bit about how change happens. Okay, so this is very important, and then we're going to go to where you need to go.
Okay.
So a lot of people think that what they need to do in order to reach their goals is behave differently. Okay, so I want to lose weight. So I'm going to create a plan of all the things I'm going to do and not do. So I'm not going to drink a lot of beer. I'm not going to eat chips. And I'm going to start exercising, right? That list of activity, that list of behaviors. And I want to say that, sure, at the end of the day, action leads to results. However, when we jump into behavior when our thinking and our beliefs are not lined up with that behavior, we get short term change. We do not get sustainable change. So, right now, your thinking is, hey, and I'm going to guess, you're going to correct me if I'm wrong. If I don't eat these beautiful, tasty foods, I'm missing out. If
Yeah.
I don't eat these things, then I don't feel connected to the family, to my parents, to a feeling that I'm seeking, that feeling of love, that feeling of warmth, that feeling of familiarity. Okay.
Hmm.
So your belief is that food comes together with love. And by the way, I understand that. My mother was an amazing cook, right? So I get it. So and in order for us to have sustainable change, we need to address that piece. So if we just try to behave differently, but our thinking hasn't changed, it's like an elastic band. You revert back to your old behavior.
Right.
Okay, so like it just doesn't work. So when we want to create massive change, we need to look at what we believe to be true first, and we need to adjust our beliefs. And when our beliefs adjust, our behavior naturally changes. And so what I want you to think about is this whole concept of peacefulness, because peacefulness is your driver, is your key driver. And so I want you to think about whenever you put something in your mouth,
Hmm.
does this create peace for me?
Hmm.
Will it create peace for me tomorrow, in a week from now? Does this actually create peace? Or does it give me a short term fill of an emotion that I'm desperately seeking? And can I find that emotion elsewhere?
Hmm.
So, so it's a very different approach where rather than making a big grand plan about what you're going to do and what you're not going to do day in and day out and force yourself into a disciplinary routine, we're going to change that model to making very small decisions, one bite at a time.
Okay.
And again, that decision is based on the litmus test of whether or not this is going to bring you peace.
Wow.
Because what does that do? That all of a sudden takes away all of the stress, all of the tension, all of the hyperness, that stress feeling around food. So that your attachment isn't to the food, it's to the feeling of peacefulness. That, by the way, no food will create for you. That feeling of peacefulness is something that's related to your beliefs and your thoughts,
That's right.
right? So
That's right.
that's your theme, that's your goal.
Wow.
And so that when you eat, you just eat with a higher level of consciousness. And the realization that the food I eat won't create more love. The food I eat won't create more peace. It's the thought I have about the food I eat that creates peacefulness. So when I eat, I don't know, give me a food that you love that's horrible.
Oh, um, celery.
No, I mean something that's not good for you.
Sorry. um, Pizza.
Okay, so when you eat a piece of or a whole pizza,
Yeah.
you're going to ask yourself, does this fill the emotion I'm seeking? And you might eat one slice, and then
Right.
you might eat a salad with it instead of four slices, right? So we're just looking for small incremental changes that bring you the emotional state you're seeking. And that's the driver.
Wow. Yeah. This makes a lot of sense because in all of my digging, um, I think the relationship with food was formed very early, because my parents were immigrants who had to make a living, and my dad worked um, the graveyard shift. My mom had to go to her store in Manhattan, and my brother had to go to school. And I remembered it as if I was, you know, home alone for like 4 hours. Technically, it was for 2 hours, But then my dad would immediately go to sleep, so he would feed me the awesome meal that my mom would give me, um, and then the consistency in all that loneliness, as a 4-year old, like, besides Bert and Ernie on Sesame Street, um, it was just like, all right, well, that food is there, and I would definitely do. My mom would hide the sugar, and I would climb up on top of the fridge and know where she hid it, and I would take spoonfuls. Believe it or not, I would eat the Pearl Drops toothpaste because it tastes so good. It was
Wow.
it was ridiculous. But um, I I did all those things that I wasn't supposed to do. Probably out of fear because I just felt so alone. And I know, I whenever I look back at childhood, I always like pinpoint, me being the younger version of myself, sitting in the windowsill, um, saying goodbye, waiting for someone to come home, and then as soon as they did, then it was a whole different thing. But then once my dad was home, it was still lonely, and then he would get up at noon to feed me lunch, and then around 2:30, my older brother would come home, and then my day would start,
Right.
where we would, you know, be boys and just, tease each
So for
other.
you, food is equal to being cared for. Like that's the way you were cared for. That's the way you were taken care of.
That's right.
And so what we need to do is rewire that and understand you have a family. You're not lonely anymore. And so your job is to really pinpoint when I reach for these foods that aren't particularly healthy for me, what is the emotion I'm trying to fill? And how else can I fill it? So that I'm relaxed, I'm calm, and I'm seeking peacefulness rather than filling frenetically this hole that I'm trying to address and take care of through eating.
Wow. Yeah.
I hope that was helpful. I hope that makes you
Very.
think about this totally differently.
Yeah.
And really what I want you to do is not think about all the stringent rules and regulations you need to put in place in order to reach your goals, but rather how you approach food in a way that brings you calm and peacefulness. And as you do that, the decisions you make will be lighter, easier, less harmful,
Yeah.
and fuel your sense of peace at a much larger level.
Wow. I can't thank you enough, Kim. This is this is phenomenal. And by the way, I meant to mention that I've been reading your book, about, what you focus on grows, and I'm about halfway through, and it's, all these short stories that just, get right to the heart of the matter, and it's been phenomenal. So that's been part of, uh, also just, kind of changing, as you did with the last time you would help me, just to change the thinking, and then that automatically changes all the behaviors, because we get so, caught up in, all these thoughts, and it's, yeah, if you just see things differently, it's a lot better. So yeah, I appreciate you getting right to the heart of it so
It's
damn
my
clearly.
it's my pleasure. And here's the thing, any time that we feel like agitated, out of sorts, a negative emotion, that's an indicator that our thoughts are pointing us away from what we want. And so, you're like, oh, I have all this peace around me, except when I think about food and my health. And that's an indicator that your thoughts are pointed away from what you want. So, what we want to do is usually when we feel bad, we want to jump to action. And I always tell everybody before you jump to action, look at what you believe to be true about this situation, this problem, this area of frustration, and adjust your thinking before taking any action. So that's the lesson for the
Wow.
day.
Wow. So brilliant. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. And if there is some way that I can thank you, please, you know, let me know.
I will absolutely do that. And for those of you who are listening, if you have a challenge that you want to address and you want to be on the podcast, please reach out to me. My email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. And if you have a challenge that you don't want to address on the podcast, reach out anyways. My email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. Raj, I want to thank you so much for being bold and willing to volunteer on my podcast. I think that your challenge is not unique. I think a lot of us are in the same boat. So thank you so much for sharing that situation and that story, and for being bold enough to come onto the podcast too. And I certainly hope we stay in touch.
Yes, thank you so much, Kim. I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure.